Hi guys, Squall here. Welcome back to another episode of Derail Valley Overhauled. In the last video, if you remember, we basically hauled our last run before we cleared our fees, and we brought this load of stuff up here to we are in the city southwest. Quite a nice, interesting run. Loco's still here. I did say it in previous episodes, do not leave the locomotives on these tracks. Run to the station by all means, but you need to move it afterwards. Just remember that when you do move it, it will start to accumulate fees once more. Now, in this episode, I want to buy a license today. I want to move things up a little gear. We've done the basics. We've got ourselves 37 grand. We've got a pocket watch. We have a remote. I've showed you how to use all that. And the question always comes down to what actual license should we go for next? And this is where it gets interesting, because you really do have a choice. You really can go different ways on this. It's entirely up to you. Obviously, we know that Logistical would have the benefit of not touching the copay, and it would improve our deadline bonus by 5%. Logistical jobs are, they're pretty decent payers. I mean, if you were playing this on your own, that would be a perfectly reasonable choice to do. I kind of want to show you more interesting things, because if I take that, then we're just going to be hauling some empty cars around, and that's not particularly interesting for you. So I want to show you a slightly different way of doing things. Now, we could think about multiple unit. Multiple unit, we can afford it. That would allow us to operate 2 locomotives at the same time, which obviously, if you're in a DE2, it will double your pulling power, effectively. Now, for that, to make sense, you would need to find jobs that are heavy enough. There are some pretty heavy jobs out there, like that one's 320 tons. The problem is, the really heavy stuff tends to be up in the hazmat territory, or this one, for example, which requires you to have a long 2. So, you need, it's all very well having the ability to have multiple units, but then you kind of need long 2 to go with it, so you've got a nice big heavy train in order to haul with 2 locomotives. So it doesn't really make sense to get multiple unit early on. You're better off getting long 2 before you get that. Manual service is something that we will have to think about very soon, but not right now. So that kind of leaves us with a couple of ways of going. We can either go train length 2, which will give us the long haul 2 that we just talked about, or we can think about concurrent jobs, right? So currently, a train length 2 combined with the manual service is 20 plus 20 is 40 grand. It's not insubstantial. What I'm going to do is take concurrent jobs 1. And what concurrent jobs 1 will do is it will reduce our time bonus deadline down a little bit, but I'm not worried about that. But it will put our copay up by 7.5 grand. And that means our sort of copay is going to be up in the 10 grand mark. But that's just something we're going to have to deal with, I'm afraid. Concurrent jobs will let you do more than one job at the same time, which will allow us to go to the same place with 2 jobs and do a multi-drop. And the multi-drop is something that I want to show you today. So I'm going to start off by grabbing this license. There we go. So we can now do concurrent 1. And if we go to stats, it actually shows you now that our copay remaining is 10,000. Oops. Our copay remaining is 10,600. Yeah, and our fee tolerance is now 5,755. So we can do 5,700's worth of damage, if you want to call it that, to a locomotive fees before we have to clear our fees off. But we can use multiple locomotives, remember, if you want to, more than one, in sequence. Important thing is we're now got to shell out 10 grand. So to make good profit, we have to maximize our use here. I'm going to head up to the machine factory in town, because that is a good place. Harbour in town is fantastic as well, but we've done that a little bit. Kind of want to show you somewhere else. So machine factory in town is another good place to pick up lots of jobs. If we want to do concurrent jobs, there tends to be quite a few that spawn there. The locomotives that are up there will vary. Sometimes it will spawn DE2s. Other times it'll be DE6s and that kind of thing. You can't guarantee what you're going to get up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 locomotives up there. Yes, you heard me right. 2 locomotives. And what I'm hoping to do is to use our current concurrent job license to put together 2 big trains together and use 2 locomotives to drop them. If we only need to use 1, fine. We could take one up there and gamble there'll be one there, but I'm gonna take two and just make sure. And I'm gonna show you how to get around not having the multi-unit license. See this one here? If you have multiple unit license, this blue cable will connect. And if you put another locomotive behind it, any controls that you do here will be reflected in the one behind it. But that's a 30 grand license, and I'm going to show you how to operate two locomotives at once without having that license. So I'm going to start this up, hook it up to the other loco, and then we'll get out of here. Right, so first thing we're going to do is bind our remote to this particular loco here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that one up there. I'm not actually going to drive that one up there. That will come later. I'm going to drag it up there, and that way there's no point burning diesel on both locomotives. But we will have to make sure the brakes are released, because remember, unlike cars, this has its own independent brake, and since we're not connected on the blue cable, it will not automatically release any brakes on that thing. So once we hook up, which we'll do in a second, we'll just need to jump in the cab and make sure that the brakes are released in this thing. Okay, so couple that up. Now notice that it doesn't connect the blue cable. If we had that license, if we had the multiple unit license, it would automatically connect it as part of the process. But in this cab here, you see the train brake was still on. Sorry, the Indy brake was still on. By the way, I'm apologise now if I do cough a little bit. I've got a chest infection. I'm on antibiotics. And, you know, I'm trying to record videos for you guys whilst trying not to cough. But occasionally it will happen. So I do apologise for that. But brakes have been released. Put the reverser into forward. And we will operate this thing. We want to keep left out of City Southwest, and we're going to take ourselves left through that junction, right through that one, and that will bring us into the machine factory in town, and then we'll see what kind of job we've got. Here we are. We are approaching the machine factory. We're coming in. We've just set the points to take us over towards the turntable there. I'll have to slow it down and go and move the turntable. So on the diagram, you just keep left on the way in, and just slow it down a little bit. Just keep left on the way in and you'll automatically go over to this turntable here, which we should be able to spin around like that. If you get it mostly in position, you can then run over, and if you just lean against this thing, you can make that final adjustment like that. Why am I bringing it to the turntable? Because we'll probably want to go back south out of here, most likely. So we're probably going to have to spin this around, but at least if we put it on the turntable, you know, depending on what jobs we get, we can decide either way. Get that on there. Lovely. Just about stopped in time, and we'll kill the engine. Like so. Yep, that's absolutely fine. We'll leave it as it is for now. Okay, so there's the steam train. Beautiful. SH282. Absolute beast. So much pulling power, but difficult to operate. This, on the other hand, I love this thing. The D6 is a monster. By the way, I think the new version, Derail Valley Simulator, will be coming with more locomotives, which is lovely. But more about that, I think, in future videos. Right, let's have a look, because you've probably never been here before. There's a turntable. Actually, we briefly came here, didn't we? There's a turntable. This is the main loading bay over here. The C area is the main loading bay. That's that thing. And we can see that the actual... Bear in mind, this is... No, south is over there. North is that way. I wish you could turn these things around. The actual shop is... Or the station, sorry, is over here. Kind of head towards these chimneys is the best thing. Where are they? Chimneys have gone. Head towards these chimneys, he says, and like that. Before the chimneys, this side of the chimneys are all these tracks, and then stations like there. So where this loading bay is in C, if you go past the chimneys, you've gone too far. It's the only way. Until we get a compass, guys, it's really hard to explain this. There's the military bit. Here's the station. Let's have a look at what we've got in store. Right, so when I first looked at these jobs, they were not particularly great. If you want to respawn the set, the best thing to do is do what I did. I just literally walked away or teleport out of the area and then walk back again. It should refresh the whole jobs. That's what I did. I then ended up with these things. So we've got a shunting job there, which I'm not interested in, $4,000. We've got another $4,000 job. We've got a job that it requires a long haul 2, which we're not going to be buying. And that leaves us with these 4 here. Now, unfortunately, it's not quite what I wanted, but it is actually quite nice what we're going to get. I'll explain that in a second. So this freight haul job is a perfectly reasonable job, 10,000 back to the steel mill. That's about halfway down to the harbour factory. So in and of itself, that's a nice job. This one here is a logistic haul. We don't have the logistic haul license, but if we did, we could take 76 tons is nothing up to the Orwell North. It would be beautiful if we had something else to go with this, to go up to the Orwell North, you know, because we have that concurrent license now. And then finally, you've got this one, which they're both going to the same place, and they're both paying very, very well. For our stage in the game, this is good money for our stage in the game. It's a long one. We already have that license. The one on the right is a freight haul. The one on the left is a logistic haul, and we don't have that license yet. We do have concurrent, so we could take both of them. And what that means is if you actually add the masses together as well, 120 tons approximately plus 110 tons approximately, just to give you some simple mental maths, is 310. Sorry, 320. No, 310. Good God. 310 tons. Perfectly capable for one locomotive. One DE2 can do this. From here to the harbour town is southerly, and we know that the harbour town's down at sea level. This is mostly downhill. The only place it gets a bit interesting is that turn that we went through in the last episode. That is a climbing 3% gradient, and then it climbs up that gradient there. But one locomotive can definitely handle this. Unfortunately, that means I won't be able to show you 2 locomotives in action in this video without the license. I will do that on the next video. We'll do that coming out of the harbour after we finish this job. What I want to do is take this one because it's a good excuse to show you logistic hauls in action, especially when I can combine it with concurrent. So a concurrent logistic haul has its own things that you need to think about. So this will be a very interesting thing to do. So in order to buy the license, of course, if I try to buy a logistic haul, it's going to tell me, you can't do it. You've got to clear those fees, Sonny Jim. So we're going to have to clear the fees. So how much did we rack up? We racked up $2,000 bringing one locomotive, and the other one was pulled for $9 of damage. You know, in the grand scheme of things, we have, how much money do we have? We have 27,000, so we can afford to pay that and still buy the license. It's going to leave us skint. Now, it is saying, do you have manual service? You can get it done for half price. Yes, we don't have a manual license yet. It's another thing to buy. So we'll buy that. $2,000. $9. We're clear. We can now get the license. Logistic haul. And remember, this will give us an extended time duration as well. So it won't affect our copay, but it will put the time bonus deadline back up 5%. So this really does help us out, actually. It's a good license to get anyway because it will help us out. That will increase the time on our time bonus here. So what we need to do now is put these in our inventory and step outside. You might be asking, Squirrel, what is the difference between the two? What is a logistic haul? What is a freight haul? What's the pros and cons here? I'm just going to put these in my inventory after the station map. There we go. I want that one there, please. I still think this is a little bit clunky. Right. Okay, there they are, next to each other, 5 and 6. The freight haul, we've already seen this. We basically haul it to a destination. It'll say, take it to whichever siding, drop it, and go. That's it. The logistical is a different beast. It can be anything from take this thing to a single siding, push some stuff out the way and drop it off. Or it could be that when you start out, this thing is connected to something else and you need to disconnect it first. Or maybe a couple of the bits need to be on different platforms. So, you know, drop these cars off on one siding and then drop the rest on a different siding. It could be any of these things. You don't know until you get into it. That's the thing about it. With that in mind, that's worth 15,000. This one is worth 21,000. Which one do you think we should drop off first? If you said this one, you're correct. Absolutely. We know this is going to be a simple drop. We don't know the nature of that yet. That could be a lot of faffing around. And if we do that before this one, we might miss the deadline. So what I like to do then is, knowing which one I want to be at the back of my train, I will move it so that it's at the back of my list. So that way I can remember 5 and then 6. I want to pick up 5, then I want to pick up 6. That way, this is at the back. So I'm just going to go and have a quick look around and try and figure out where these things are. We're going to pull a loco out and we're going to start hooking things up, and then we'll start on the job. Both of these things are actually in the same yard. One of them is the tractors. That's the expensive one. You see that there in 2O? And then over on the right here in 6S is the logistical. And as far as I can tell, all the cars are together. So that leads me to think the logistical is going to be move the stuff over and then probably drop parts of it in slightly different places is what I think it's going to be. Okay, right. Let's couple that up. Give that time to release all the brakes, get the brake pipe pressure up. There it goes. So yeah, we want to grab these here. So I'll quickly show you while the brake pressure is building up. What we have is LH19, which is that one, and you can see it's a green car, which is on the right there. Then we should have a flat one, which we do. Then we have 2 brown box cars, and then a red box car, and then 2 flats container ones as well. Look, LH19. LH19. So they're all LH19s. So it's not like we've had to assemble this. They're all together. So all we need to do is pull this forward, reverse it up against those tractors, and then we should be good to get moving. And you know, we know our routes. We've been up and down here. That's not really the issue. The descent out of here, it's a long, slow descent down to City Southwest. And then you've got the flat bit through the farm, and then you've got that climbing turn up from the steel mill, and then it's... What the heck is that? That was the weird... What was that? I've never heard that before. I don't even know what that was. Was that a sound bug? Man, that was weird. I thought my speakers had gone. Right. That was not your speaker, by the way. Let's get past this, like that. Put the reverser on. And then we want to go into there. And this is the beauty of having this remote right now, is just doing this stuff is so much easier. We can maintain visibility on all the points while operating the train, standing at the back and making sure everything connects. It's beautiful. Let's get down here. So the next one we're picking up is the big one, which is FH35. You can see that's FH35. Slow that down a bit. And then it's FH35 all the way to the back there. As you can see, FH35. Hit the couple button. Put the reverser back into forward. Release all the brakes. Let the brake pressure come up. We are ready to go. FH35 is on the back. LH19 is on the front. Logistical. Brake pressure's coming up. Now, what we can do, we can actually start this thing moving whilst running down to here and handing these jobs in. Now, we know the job time is 63 minutes, so we'll get our stopwatch out. 63, I'll put it on there. We'll start the stopwatch. We will hand this in. We'll hand this in. And we will run. There we go. Let's jump up there. Let's get the speed going. Oh, wheel slip. That's the beeping, is the wheel slip. So, logistic haul. Let's just double check. We picked that up out of B6S, which is where we were, I think. And B20, yeah. And we're taking it to Harbour and Town. Those are the cars. We could cross-check the car numbers. This is going into D in 5S. So it says uncouple all of them. So it's not even a split. This is a very, very simple logistics job. That's a surprise given how much we're being paid for this. But I'll take it. Harbour Town, D4I. So we've got D5S and D4I. So they're all in the same block in the harbour, which makes life so much easier. So we have really looked out on this. Just take it easy until the back gets through there. So D is here. We know we're going to have to reverse in. So what we'll have to do with such a long train, we'll have to come in here, reverse in, go into C as far as we can, and then reverse back out into D. If we go in forward, we'll have no way of dropping the back set off. We won't be able to drive far enough in. We have to reverse into D. And if you look at the way this is laid out, you can't even go east and then reverse in. You literally have to do that. Or you're going to have to split the job and take one bit in and then come back for the other. It just depends, what you've been given. We're only on a long one. If this was a long two, we was doing this and it was like twice the length, I would start being concerned about getting that whole train down there. But given the length of this train, I think we'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so on the way up here, I didn't really show you this route, so we'll drive this bit, and then we'll start cutting it a little bit. Basically, let's just get rid of that. We're pretty much going downhill now. Basically, it's a clear run through here. It's 70 through that junction from this side, 60 if you come in that way. And then it's downhill. Be very careful at the bottom of this hill. That turn, you're going to have to be doing 30 around that bend. So make sure you get your braking done. Do not let the train run away with you down here, otherwise you will derail when you make a left 30. And then also remember, there's another 30 around this area here. So with that in mind, we'll just keep eye on the speed. I'm going to shave a little bit of speed off here. I want to be under 70 really. That's fine. If you ever hear, it's a very subtle sound, but if you ever hear a clunk, good chance you've derailed something. If you press the tilde key or the backspace, backtick, up near the 1 button, it will bring the dev menu down. I mean, obviously when this game's finished, that probably won't be there. But if you've had a derailment, you'll see it here. So that's a little tip for you while you're learning the game. Okay, so I'm going to get 1 notch of train brake on because, we're not that far away from the bottom of this hill. And that should just keep the speed under control. We'll go to 2. 1 notch seems to be the sweet spot for this particular train. You do have to sort of feel your way through these things. But you see 100 with a reducing speed limit, gradually shaving off the speed. 80 reducing speed limits, the down arrow. If you don't know, just literally teleport down there and have a look. Like if you're unsure of the map, when you're first doing this, get down there and look. Don't leave it to chance. As far as I'm concerned, I'm happy at the moment. Speed's just holding nicely. Okay, I'm going to get an extra notch in now. Wait for the brake pressure to build back up. Maybe just keep 1 notch on. If this thing starts gaining momentum, it's hard to shave and control. Because, the skill in this, apart from spotting the points being correct exactly, is keeping the speed under control whilst maximising your speed and momentum so that you don't lose time. And that really is the skill of the game. And it does take practice, so don't beat yourself up if you're not doing too bad. You know, it does take quite a few hours to get used to this. So that's quite nice. We came round there. We slowed down just enough to get that perfect momentum. Now it says 60 there, but that's a little bit of a lie. Oh, we should start to build speed back up now. So that's City Southwest where we started. So you might prefer driving here. You might prefer driving actually in the cab. That's perfectly fine. You can press the X key to go into like a sitting view. And obviously there's no seat, but if you want to get the train driver's perspective, this is what you would go for, this kind of sitting view here. Or standing is like that. Alternatively, you know, you could just walk out the door. You could stand here and do it. You could use the remote. Like, there's many ways of doing it. You'll find your own way of driving. I kind of like this view, but it's a little bit, you know, purists would argue, oh, you should be in the cab, you know. Just enjoy yourself, is what I would say. Right, 80 limit decreasing, flat, no slope. It's deceiving us again. It's saying, oh, look, you can go 50. But we know full well there's the 30 limit coming up. Now, the last time, if you can, because it's a single player game, what you can do is think, well, hang on a minute. The last time I came through here, I came from the harbour town. I came I came up here. I turned left there. I went back through the farm. So all those points should still be set correctly. Should be. But never assume. Never assume. Like that one back there, you know, I saw it at the last minute, but that could have gone horribly wrong. I could have been going straight into City Southwest, and then I'd have to reverse back out. I'd lose 5-10 minutes. But they should all be set correctly. Right, I'm just going to quickly jump ahead. And there you go. There's the speed limit confirmation. 30 left. And we should be doing about 30. Lovely. A little bit of indie brake just to take the edge off that speed. And don't be start accelerating too soon. The whole back of that train has got to get through there. It doesn't matter so much on this train, but on the bigger ones, you know, you can be 500 meters down here and the back of that has still not gone through. So, as I've said before, get the habits right in the early game, because you're going to need them later. Right, time check. Plenty of time. Okay, I'll blast it through the farm and we'll pick it up just before that climbing turn. Right, so we are on the approach to the climbing turn here. And we know we've got to be down at 30 for that turn. Now this is a tricky bend to get right. Firstly, the point is set correctly, so that's fine. But it's a tricky bend because it's a climber and you've got to be doing under speed. So the first thing to do is get our speed under control. But you want your brake pressure to be back up to normal, if possible, just as you're about to make that turn. So throttle up as it's approaching 30. Get the engine running. If you've timed it right, you've got your brake pressure. Get the sand on. Oh, it's 50, not 30, my bad. 3% gradient, 50 speed limit. We could have done that as a faster speed limit. That's my bad. But this is where it starts to hurt here, because you've got the climb and you've got the friction on the wheels from the turn. And this is where your engine can really struggle. So as long as you've got the power on as you enter the turn, otherwise what happens is you go in to the turn and you start to wonder, why am I losing speed rapidly? And by then it's all over. So just keep that push through the turn and you'd be okay. But yeah, I could have done this a bit quicker. I misremembered the speed limit. Okay, 1.8. So 3.3 through the turn, 1.8, much less. We should be able to back off on the throttle and the sand. There we go. And it's under control. So not too bad. Right, so you've seen this journey before. We've done this on episode 1. It's not really any different. We've just got a slightly heavier load now. But it's the same principle. 60 through here, keep left through there, and then it's relatively flat through here. Descending turn, watch out for that 40 on the bend. Descending all the way down here, another 40 on the bend, and then you got to, you get into the final section here where you've got 40 around there, 40 around there, and it's a drop down into harbour. So, we won't grind over this again. We're going to pick it up down near the harbour because that's where we're going to have to start doing some work, reversing it into D. Of course, the engine temperature is starting to get a bit high now, but it's fine because we're about to reach the plateau. I look forward to the day, guys, when we can get a DE6 license, 200 grand. I mean, one option is that you just do shunting jobs until you get it, but what you'll find is if you take the DE6 too early, you're going to be paying pretty hefty running costs. 2 DE2s are still very capable, and in the early game, very cheap to run, basically. But yeah, we'll pick it up as we get down near the harbour. Right, well, here we are. I'm just getting the braking back under control as we come down this slope. We're coming down into the harbour, 40 limit round this bend, and we'll just remind ourselves what we're trying to do here. We're going to, after the turntable, we're going to turn around that loop into C and then reverse down into D. The first drop off is going to be 4I, and then we're going to do 5S. In terms of time, we have plenty of time. And this is the advantage of having this thing. We don't have to drop the first one off, run to the station, think, let's get this done before I do the second one. We literally know from this that we have, we've made good time here. So let's get some more brake, keep it under control, 40 at this point here. The one thing the remote does have the advantage of is it shows the kind of, like the step that the brake is in, which for a train brake is quite useful because 1 or 2 usually gets things under control. 3 really starts to chip away at it. Rarely do you need to go more than that, but you can do it by looking down at this thing, of course, but it doesn't really show any indentations on it. But that I find that's quite useful on the remote. Right, so let's build the speed up as we go around here. We'll take a jump out now. We'll keep left on here. We're going to take this outer loop, and we are looking to go forward into C yard. So we need to work out where we're going in C. We're going to have to go to the right because that's the most available track. So that's the loading bay, which has never got anything on it. This is another reason not to leave locomotives, seriously, or anything else on these tracks, because you never know when you're going to need them. So 3L is going to be into there. Then we're going to reverse out of here, and we'll be hanging a right, and we're going to be aiming for D. This will take us to D. We're aiming for... Let's go to D for a second. 4I, which is... 4I is right down the middle. So there's literally 4Is there. It's all set up for 4I. So yeah, we don't want to be going through these points more than, well, I'd suggest 20, but 30 are an absolute maximum. 20 is enough through these kind of things with these chicanes. So we're going to go all the way down to the front. We need to clear the back on this. The back needs to clear this. It should be enough. They're quite long, these things. But, you will notice that there's no way we can come forward into here. Sorry, reverse into here. On the other side and drop off and then, have a hope of reversing back out again. Like, literally, new players might do that. They might come at it, just drive straight into D and be like, now I'm stuck. So you need to think about these things when you're doing... It doesn't happen when you're not doing concurrent jobs. But when you're doing concurrent jobs, these are the things that happen. Is the order that you put the train together and then the order that you drop it off, and considerations like this. How do you actually drop it off? The fact that we're reversing first. So what we'll do is we'll jump to the back of the train, because that's what matters. And once it's cleared this part here, it's happy days. So we'll get 1 notch on, start slowing it down. The thing is, make sure that the train properly clears this point here, because if it doesn't, and you try to flick it too early, you see how the bit of metal actually extends off the back of that. So if there's a wheel here and you try to flip the points, it will quite often, it'll just bounce back again. And it does model it, it resets it, it happens quite a bit. Okay, so again, the remote comes in super handy at this point. Wheel spin. Too much acceleration too early, and that's what happens. I still want to know why there's a boat just randomly here. I've never worked it out. Like, how did it even get from there to here? And who left it? And who lives in this place? Never see anybody around. There is talk about them adding AI vehicles in the game at some point. You know, like other locomotives and trains driving around. I kind of wonder how that would work. I really do. Because most of this game is single track. And, you know, if it's all very well having multiple trains, but you need something controlling it. I imagine trying to estimate how long a job will take in the job engine will get very interesting if it has to consider the possible places that you could be held up waiting. That's a tricky one, that is. I think for now it needs to stay single player. Like, after release, what I really want to see is a new map. I really do. And then I really want to see modded maps. I think I'd love to see what the modding community can come up with in terms of maps. You only have to look at something like Farm Simulator to see what the community... There are some really skilled map makers out there, and they would come up with some absolutely superb maps. Okay, so if we've done this right, we should be going to here, D4I. Then we're going to pull forward into D5S. Now, 4I and 5S are next to each other. So this is, like, incredibly fortuitous in terms of how easy this job is for dropping off. This could have been so much harder. You can see 4I is there, reverse into it, pull forward, reverse into 5S. Okay, so that is the sign there. So this is the kind of demarcation point. Now we're going to have to work out how many cars we actually want to disconnect. And this is where it gets interesting, because we want to drop the rear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars. Yeah, we're going to drop the rear 7 cars. So what do we want on that number? Okay, that should be 35 there, 19 there. Right, so we want the rear 7 cars, but remember this starts from the train side. If I actually go the other way, minus 14 should be leave 1 car. So that should leave 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars, 7 cars. If I uncouple that, you see how that worked? We drop the rear 7. I love this remote control. Have I said it before? Because that makes that so much easier. Brake pressure will already be released in these cars because we didn't disconnect these. They maintain their brake pressure. And we'll just make sure it's pulling away the correct thing. So we're expecting job... which one's this? Job LH19. So that should be LH19. And these are tractors, FH35. It's not so bad when you're using obviously different cars, but sometimes you won't have that privilege. And it's always better to just get used to checking the car numbers. Like, if you really want to, you could actually check the individual car number, which is like that, the CFF 780. And by the way, it does tell you the weight, length, and if it's got any damage on it. But CFF 780 should appear on your job sheet here. CFF 780, you see? And we know the green car's at the front. So it's just more ways of double checking that you're putting the right thing in the right place. And that way, when you run over to the job machine and you hand your job in, it doesn't say denied. In case you don't know how this works, by the way, it splits into a yard. So there's a yard, it's called D. That's track 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So they're the track numbers. And the letter, it is a letter, it's not a number. The letter after the track number indicates what it's for. So L for loading, I for input, O for output, S for siding, that kind of thing. Okay, let's get the brake going. Right, so this needs to be on -1 now. Minus is the back of the train. So -1 uncouple, we'll disconnect that. And we're just going to pull this shunter out the way. We're not going to leave it on the line. And we should have over here our little parking spot. Do that. Should be able to bring him and park him next to the other one there. We still have over 20 minutes, so I'll park this up. And we'll run in and see how much we get for these jobs. Okay, so first one's this one, worth 15 grand. Oh, somehow ended up inside the job engine then. Hang on a sec. I've got this strange walking bug. There we go. 23,557 we got for that. So there's the job, and then we'll hand that one in. And we got 31,990. So there you go. We did it 42 minutes to do a 63-minute on both jobs. And we got a nice little bonus. You get that weird walking bug now and again where it was constantly moving forward, and the only way to fix it is to Alt-Tab out and Alt-Tab back in again. It's a really weird one. Anyway, that leaves us with 60,780. Of course, we haven't paid the fees on this thing yet. But again, there's just no point doing it at the moment because the fees on this will not even hit our copay. Our copay is like 10 grand now. So we need to work out how to maximize the use of our vehicles without paying too much money for them. And that's something we're going to have to look at in the next one because we're not repairing it this time. Okay, full brakes on that. Into the cab, knock off the engine. Job's done, lights are off, brakes are on. And if we quickly have a look here, we can just see, yeah, 7,400 copay fees to reduce your remaining copay to 1,200. So basically, there's a couple of options here. We can either do more jobs and then, maximize our copay, or we can think about getting the manual service, 20 grand for the service. That means that if you take a locomotive with that much on it to the actual repair center, which is over there, see it? It will cost half of that. Pros and cons, swings and roundabouts. We'll discuss it more in the next video. This one's long enough. Really hope you enjoyed that episode, guys. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. In the next one, we're going to try and get a job that involves 2 DE2s that we're going to operate and haul something big. Take it easy, guys. Happy training.